Hi, good evening, everybody. It's almost the weekend because I think it's a holiday tomorrow. We just realized, and I hope before you start the long weekend, you get some good insights today during this session on achieving your career goals. So thank you for joining. My name is Arjun. I'm the founder of Pivot, and the session that you have signed up for, which we are taking today, is one of the most practical, most commonly asked question about job search, which is how do you really get more interview callbacks in the current job market? That is probably the number one problem that our community, our users are facing, um, especially before they come to Pivot. And that's one of the reasons they come to Pivot is because they want to improve their callback rate. Um, Before we dive into the main topic pointers for the day, which regard with regard to what works, what doesn't work, just want to share some data here so that you understand the whatever I'm sharing is something that's actually tried and tested. It's been validated. So we've been doing this for over 5 years now at Pivot, which is helping mid-career professionals achieve their career goals, especially when they are making some sort of a transition, whether it's just a job switch or perhaps even a domain or industry shift, or moving up the career ladder, going from IC to manager or leadership type of roles. So we have worked across all of these different use cases, and we have experience working with close to 10,000 professionals so far, right? So a lot of the strategies that we'll be sharing today are the ones that have been used. Initially we experimented, there were failures. Very candidly, there were failures. We were not getting much higher conversion compared to what people were getting on their own. But over the last 4 years, we have drastically improved the conversion rate for majority of our clients. And on average, we have seen, when people come to us, they have less than 1% conversion rate, meaning if they're applying to 100 companies, they are hearing back positively from less than one company or just one company. But with us, we have seen that conversion rate typically improves to an average of about 5 to 6%, right? So it's almost 5 to 6 times higher than the average market conversion rate. So that's the reason that we thought it would be beneficial for people today in the job market who are thinking about how to crack your target role in a more efficient, more effective manner, to do this session, right? And we have a few fun things also planned in terms of not just giving you a lot of generic advice, but rather sharing practical, pointed insights using certain examples, certain live applications that we have worked on recently, which we think can bring a lot of good insight to the table than just hearing like those vague pointers which you see on LinkedIn all the time. So with that said, let's dive in. Right. So the first thing that I want to do is sort of set the stage on what's really happening from a recruitment standpoint, because until and unless you know what are the key trends from hiring standpoint, you won't be able to understand what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for. Right. So first thing that has happened over the last 3 or 4 years, since I would say COVID ended, is we faced a huge increase, a huge spike in the number of candidates in the job market. So up till 2022, the average number of candidates in the job market used to be about 200, maximum 250, uh, somewhere around that. Today, on average, that number has spiked to 500 plus, right? Which really just shows how much more competition there is in the job market. And so, if I'm a recruiter, hiring manager, and I'm getting these many applicants for each opening, I don't really have the time or bandwidth to go through each and every profile. And you know that. I know a lot of you who have joined me today already probably know that. But the reason I'm still highlighting this is because earlier, if there were people who were spending, let's say, half a minute going through your job applications, today that has reduced to just 10 seconds on average. So you really need to make a quick impression, um, and be able to highlight the points which will help you stand out from the job market, right? So that's one thing. The other thing that has happened is because of the crowdedness of the job market, there are a lot of highly qualified, highly experienced candidates, highly performing candidates also. It's not just that you're competing with folks who could not find a job. A lot of them were laid off because of business restructuring. It wasn't because of their performance issues or anything like that. So because of these kind of new trends that we are seeing, we know that it's harder to stand out until and unless you do certain things which make you uniquely different compared to other candidates. So that overall profile positioning, which earlier was not as critical, has become much more critical in today's job market, right? So we'll talk more about that part as well, uh, and make sure that if you are one of the 500 candidates who has similar experience and skill set than the other folks who have applied, how can you still stand out from that crowd, right? So we'll talk about that. And the third and final trend that I want to talk about is just overall skill requirements that have been continuously and rapidly evolving in the last 4 or 5 years. We all know about AI and how it has been a sort of general purpose technology which has impacted not just one role, but pretty much every single role that's out there. And there are other types of skill evolutions that have happened. For example, we've seen in tech, a lot of times it's not necessarily just AI. There are new tech stacks that are being developed every month, every couple of years. And if you are not upgrading your tech stack, or you're not expanding your portfolio of tech knowledge, then it can set you back in the competitive job search process as well. So those are the most obvious technical skill requirements. But there are a lot of times, as you evolve in your career, you will see what you were good at is not always what is valued in the market today. Like if you're good at core executional skills and you're trying to rise up the career ladder and you're targeting more managerial roles, you will obviously have to showcase some people management, leadership, and executive presence, those kind of skills as well. So we have to ensure that we are not just staying stagnant in our skills showcasing. We need to be able to showcase a lot of new skills which companies are today looking for, right? So these are some of the key trends that we are observing. So now if you apply these trends to on ground practice, what's really happening when a recruiter or hiring manager actually has to look at 100 applicants in one day and try to filter who are the top, let's say 25 or 30 that he or she should be calling back. So the way that happens, firstly, is an ATS filter. If you don't know what that is, an ATS filter is an applicant tracking software, generally used by, I would say, most mid to large size companies, not usually smaller companies. Unless it's a well-funded startup, they might be using it, but most non-funded companies don't use ATS. So in case you're applying to mid to large companies and funded startups, then you are first going to get filtered through an ATS system, where they look at primarily your overall structure and format of the application. Plus there are certain key requirements that the recruiter who's hiring for that role, or hiring manager hiring for that role, might have put in as a parameter for filtering out certain candidates. For example, if somebody does not have the right keyword matches with regard to your skill alignment, with regard to experience alignment, you might get filtered out. If you're using, I'll show you certain examples as well, but if you're using a wrong format, you might get filtered out by the ATS. If you are, let's say, somebody who is triggering specific factors which the ATS is trained or has been told to parse out. Like for example, if you um, have less than X years of experience, and the company definitely is not wanting to hire somebody with that limited experience, then you might get filtered out. So there are very black and white parameters sometimes that are put in ATS. But one thing that I want to clarify around ATS is, a lot of people think that it's a bot that works on its own. And yes, to a large extent, it is an automated software that does work on its own. But that's not it. The key requirements that are given in the ATS system are given by humans, are given by recruiters and hiring managers who have specific company requirements in their mind when they're putting in those parameters. So ultimately, whether it's an ATS system that's parsing you out or a human, there's going to be a lot of overlap there, right? So sometimes people feel unjustifiably penalized because they say, oh, if only I could just make it through the ATS, I would be able to impress any human that's out there. And that's only partially true, only because an ATS is a lot of times reflection of what the humans behind that ATS are looking for, the company, the recruiter, the hiring manager is looking for. So if you are thinking that, hey, if only I could make it past the ATS, then everything would be hunky dory, not necessarily. Because yes, you need to be able to first impress the ATS itself. That's very critical, right? But our session today, we'll focus more on once you have made past that stage, what else do you do? Because you're still going to be evaluated by recruiters and hiring managers. It's not like as soon as ATS gives its green light, you are going to get an interview in most cases. So we'll focus on that part. If you have more questions around ATS, feel free to later reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can also go to our website. There is a lot of great material around how to get your resume past the ATS filters. You can check that out as well. The other thing that we are going to focus on is again, what are hiring managers and recruiters looking for in the first 10 seconds. So in the first 10 seconds, the number one thing that they are looking for is your alignment with the core skill requirements or core experience requirements, right? Now, there's a lot of different types of ways to do that. But in my view, where we have seen the biggest successes is where you highlight the alignment areas, not just in any one place. So if it's just in the summary but not in the experience section, or just in the experience section not in the summary section, doesn't really work, right? You have to be able to showcase a consistent theme across your resume, across your LinkedIn profile, your outreach messages that you might be sending to people to get referrals, or even let's say during the interviews that you get. So all across the board, you need to show a very consistent messaging of how you are the best aligned with the requirements of that role. So that's point one, that it's not restricted to any one section. It rather should flow through every single section of your job application, and not just your resume, but other documents, other messages that you're sending to people as well. um, you might also ask, how do we highlight that? Because your resume might have, let's say, 300 words, 400, 500 words, and the best thing to highlight it is very simple and straightforward, but most people tend to not follow that. So if, let's say, there is an organization that is looking for certain must have skills and certain good to have skills, and let's say you have those must have skills that they have pointed out, you need to make sure that they are positioned at the top as much as possible in your resume or in other parts of your documents as well. They should not be buried too much at the bottom. Like, for example, if in your work experience you have certain experiences which are very highly aligned with the type of work requirements that the company you're targeting has, you need to make sure that it's positioned at the top. You need to make sure it's in the summary section. You need to make sure it's in the skills keyword section as well. The other thing is, you can literally use bold text to highlight certain points further. It may not necessarily make a difference to the ATS, but it does make a difference to the hiring manager or recruiter, because a lot of times they are just scanning your resume very, very quickly. So if something that is already in bold makes their life easier, they can easily parse through and figure out, okay, this person has the best alignment with what we are looking for. Don't do it too much though, because if you bold too many things, then it just defeats the purpose, right? If like half my resume is bolded out, then people will be like, okay, I mean, that pretty much means I have to read everything. Might as well focus on reading from start to finish. But we have seen that these are two very low hanging fruits that you can apply by positioning all the critical areas of alignment up top as much as possible in your work ex, in your summary, in your skill section, as well as on LinkedIn, on all the, your headline, your about section, your experience section, all those areas. And again, bold to your advantage where possible. So that's the more of the structural alignment that you can showcase. But from a content perspective, what is important that gets seen within the first few seconds is, uh, number one, the subject matter alignment, and number two, actual project experience or skills that are demonstrated that have led to certain achievements which they are looking to hire for as well. So that is something which most people don't change because they use a single resume. Sometimes they would do a little bit of customization based on, perhaps you might use certain AI tools like GPT or Gemini to say that, hey, can you please customize my resume? And some people do that, but it's done very generically, right? Because it's not your assessment of what is the alignment, it's just AI's assessment. So you need to, if even if you're using AI, make sure that you are, from a content perspective, reading the JD, understanding what are the most important requirements which are highlighted as a must have or a mandatory skill. They might say things like, this is, a mandatory skill, this is a must have requirement, or an ideal candidate should possess XYZ. They will also sometimes use words like, we prefer candidates with X qualifications or credentials, and if you have them, then it's on you to highlight those. So that's the basic content alignment. That's the basic of how you can get noticed within the first 10 seconds. But and a more advanced strategy where we have seen really good success is when candidates are not just customizing their resume based on the JD that they're reading. Because see, most people are going to read the JD, or at least use the JD for customization by using AI, right? I think at least 70% of candidates today that we work with are doing that, or were doing that before they even came to us. So that is table stakes today. You can't really achieve a lot by doing that. Where you can really achieve more is going above and beyond. That's what maybe 20%, 25% of top candidates are doing, is doing research on the company and understanding what specific goals and challenges they are dealing with at this stage. You can go through different types of documents to identify those goals and challenges. It's not necessarily in the JD. So let's say you are a software developer. Now if you're a software developer, they might ask you for certain tech stack requirements in the JD, which are good to know. But do you know what their product pipeline is in the JD? Not necessarily. They won't always mention what are the products they are working on launching in the next, let's say, 1 year. You can get that information though from the company's public disclosure. It could be on their website, it could be in their investor reports, their media presentations, press release, social media, right? So all of these different areas are the ones that you can identify some critical information which is not always mentioned in the JD. So we definitely want to make sure that we are looking at information not just in the JD, but these additional sources. You just have to understand one thing: all companies have specific goals, and there are many goals, but usually at a given point in time there are maximum 2 to 3 big goals that any company is working on, right? It could be, for example, they're trying to launch new products. It could be they're trying to enter new market. They might be trying to cost optimize. They might be trying to make their operations more efficient, or doing a digital transformation project. So these are different goals that different companies will be taking on at different points in time. So you have to identify, okay, what is this company currently going through, and what is the overall sector going through. If you have that information, you can customize your job applications probably, at least I would say, 2x or 3x better than any other candidate. If you don't have that, you're doing something that most candidates anyways are doing, right? So yeah, I would say those are the structural and now the content related customizations that you can do, which help you showcase high level of signal. And signal comes from alignment with the core skill and experience requirements that the company is looking for. Obviously, as part of that, you need to make sure that you are also utilizing certain frameworks which highlight your impact in your last role. So that's the second thing that I want to talk about, is why do most applications don't convert into interviews, especially in today's job market. um, a lot of people are realizing what worked for them in 2020 or before, when they were applying to jobs, is not working anymore. Because earlier, a lot of times you would get a pass if you highlighted the alignment between your responsibilities in prior role and the responsibilities that you will have in the next role. Let's take another example. Let's say you are a marketing manager, right? And in your prior role, what you have been doing is managing certain creative campaigns, coming up with the brand messaging and positioning, and you have been able to work with different stakeholders to get the campaign ready and roll it out, right? Now there's a lot of work that goes into building a campaign. Obviously, we all know that. But earlier, if you just highlighted that I have done the campaign building work and I know what it takes from start to finish, I know which people to work with and what kind of quality of work I need to get from them, and describe the process, that sometimes would work. Today, that's working only if you already have amazing credentials. Amazing credentials is like if you have really good uh, college background, or you have really good company background. Maybe you'll get lucky and it might work. But for everybody else, it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because companies are not looking for people who check the box of saying, yes, I have fulfilled this responsibility. They're looking for people who are making tangible impact in terms of goal achievement, at least at their level, if not at the team or organizational level. So a lot of times what we see missing are clear call outs in terms of measurable, quantifiable impact that you have created through your role. So in the same example that I was talking about, for marketing managers, it's important that you don't just highlight your responsibilities, but you actually highlight the key performance measures that were being used to assess your performance. So it's not just about, like, for example, defined a unique brand positioning versus other competitors. That everybody does. That's a responsibility. You have to figure out a an example which will highlight your alignment to the company's impact requirements. So you could say something like, created a unique brand positioning versus other competitors that led to 100% increase in website traffic over a period of XYZ days, or led to increase of X% leads that we got through different channels. So you have to figure out for your role what are the most important and relevant metrics that the company would be trying to optimize for, and highlight that. And again, this is perhaps, if you know the STAR, the situation, task, action, result framework, you might have already known this, right? But believe me, we are working with people who have 5, 10, 15 years experience, and this continues to be one of the biggest challenge that we see in people's job applications. They just don't know how to highlight the right metrics. And a lot of times, we do sympathize, because if you are at a let's say an IC, individual contributor capacity, it might be hard for you to know what is the impact that I'm creating, what is the end goal that my work is achieving. It can be hard. The line of sight is relatively limited for certain roles and certain levels of positions. But still, you can get creative. If you don't know how much like impact you have on the revenues of the company, or profitability of the company, which are driven at the top level, at least you should strive to know what are the you know what are the KPIs, what are the uh, performance metrics that your role can impact. So if it is not revenue profitability, is it, let's say, for a marketer, is it something which is more around impressions of the campaign, how many people saw that campaign? If you don't know that, then how will you know whether your campaign was successful or not, right? So you do need at least that level of insight into the impact your work is having. There is really in today's world very limited excuse to say, hey, I don't know what kind of metrics I should be putting. So this is one of the biggest reasons I think that companies reject candidates today and don't you know call them back. The other reason that I have seen is very common today is the lack of visibility in the job market, right? So that is one of the most important things in today's job market is you may have a great profile, you may have done excellent work in your last company, you may have achieved a lot of great things, very aspirational goals for your last employer, and you have put it all in your resume. And even then, believe me, it's not a cakewalk to get callbacks today. Number one reason is the amount of competition that we were talking about. Now, I'll just very quickly give you an insight into why that's happening. So we already talked about the math behind job search. So let's say there were earlier 250 candidates, today there are 500 candidates. We are using, or companies are using, ATS and AI to filter out the initial level of candidates. Now, earlier, if ATS was filtering out, let's say, uh, 80% of candidates, what that meant was that out of 250, only 50 would make through the ATS, and those applications would get reviewed by a human recruiter or hiring manager, and they would then maybe filter it down to just 20-25 candidates and interview them, right? Now, today, let's say you have 600 applicants for a role and you're hiring for 3-4 roles, but ATS is not anymore resulting in just 50 applicants that are shortlisted. Because if you take 80% filtering, today what's happening is only, let's say, 450 are getting filtered out, right, out of 600. And the remaining 150 candidates are still being judged and assessed by the recruiters and hiring managers. So instead of earlier, when they were reviewing only 50 applicants, today they are reviewing 100 or 150 applicants. So because of this, your visibility has gone down significantly. Earlier, there was a higher chance of being visible. Today there is a lower chance of being visible because people, the recruiters and hiring managers, are not spending that much time on each applicant. uh, they are also more candidates who get filtered out from ATS in the first level of uh, assessment. And when the second level of assessment is happening, even then, let's say earlier it was, you had 20 people being shortlisted out of 50, so you had, let's say, 40% chance of being noticed. Now you have 20-25 people making the cut out of 100-150. So the remaining 100 people who are not making the cut, they're in a way they can become invisible. The company is not really spending much time on them. And obviously then you have the 450 that got filtered out because of the ATS process. So at every step of the hiring journey, it's becoming harder and harder to be visible to the right people, the hiring managers and the recruiters. So because of that, if you just depend on today's job board, you are likely to not hear back, no matter how good your application is, for at least 2-3 months. At least. Sometimes, if your application or other factors are also not working in your favor, that can exceed 6 months to 8 months. It's very common when people come to us saying, hey, you know what? I've applied to 300 jobs over the last 6 months and I've not really heard back. Or I have apply to even sometimes 1,000 companies over 9 months and I really need help. So these are not such uncommon experiences anymore. They are happening more frequently because visibility in the job market has been absolutely hammered, given the amount of candidates that are out there, right? So we are going to talk about this a little bit. How do we get more visibility? The number one most effective way is to focus on networking. I cannot overemphasize the importance of networking and of getting referrals in the job market today. And I'll tell you why. Because that is the only way where you get some sort of a better, you give us better signal to the recruiter or hiring manager that this candidate is sponsored. It's being, he or she is being advocated by one of our own, by one of our team members or our employees. When that sponsorship comes in, the recruiter and hiring manager, they are they have certain biases, we all do, and they get this signal that okay, this person might be a better fit because somebody who we have already hired is recommending them, right? So a lot of times people get very confused or doubtful that, hey, number one, how should I even get referrals if I don't know anybody? So we'll talk about that. But number two, they say, okay, even if I do know somebody, and I share my application, would that person definitely refer me and would I definitely get an interview? No, it's not necessary. Maybe you know somebody who is not your friend necessarily, an acquaintance on LinkedIn or something. You might reach out to them. They might not even respond to you because they are busy, or if they respond to you, they may say, hey, your application is not aligned with what we are looking for, so I can't refer you. So firstly, you have to make sure that you are reaching out with the right positioning to the person you're requesting the referral from, right? You have to make sure that if there is an individual who's going to spend some time um, going through your application, that they don't feel it's a waste of their time. So first, more obvious thing is, make sure your positioning, your alignment, all the things that we just discussed with regard to customization of based on JD and company research, all of that should be done before you reach out for a referral. Now, in terms of how to get a referral, the one thing that I want to say is you should definitely check out our website, because that's a feature we have recently rolled out where you can find people from 1,000 plus companies and directly get a referral where there is a good fit for your role. Obviously, apart from that, there are other communities or maybe your personal network where which you can leverage to get referrals. But you need to make sure that you're not just depending on chance, on luck and hope to get referrals. There has to be a strategy, and that's why we have built this network where people, if you have a good profile that's aligned with the target role, then they would refer you, right? There's no reason they would not, because that's why they have joined our community and they are providing those referrals. So you can do that, but you also need to ensure that once you have a referral, you can't just assume that you can get an interview. So you need to continue applying. You need to continue making sure that you're still putting in the effort to optimize your job applications. You can't rest until and unless you have an offer in hand. So referrals are still beneficial though, because they help you tackle this problem of uh, limited visibility. So earlier, if you had less than 1% chance of hearing back from company without a referral, with a referral, we have seen it increases to about, at least I would say, 5 to 6 times higher. In some cases, almost 10 times higher chances. And if you can increase, I would say, even it by 3x, right? It goes from 1% to 3% or 4% probability, it's still worth it, right? Because what that means is, you can, like, even if it goes from 1 to 3%, that means you have to apply to 66% fewer jobs to get the callbacks. So it makes a lot of difference to get referrals in today's market. But yeah, it's not like if you get a referral, automatically you'll hear back. You should still continue to apply, right? So that's the other thing, and we'll be happy to take more questions towards the end if there are any with regard to networking and referrals. But now I want to get into certain live examples, right? There are couple of resumes that I have recently helped our clients with, and I would love to show some of those to help you understand what is working and what is not working, right? So allow me a second, I'll share my screen. Okay, great. I hope you all can see my screen. I think it's visible. I see it as well. Um, in case you can't, please just put it in comments and I will make sure that I will adjust my screen to ensure you are able to see it. All right. Now, in terms of the resume that I'm showing here, so this is a resume that came to us before we started working with the candidate, in terms of the overall format and structure. And This is a pretty common format that we see a lot of people using, right? Where you have, let's say, two columns, you use certain colors, right? You put your objective and other sections on the left, you put some of the core sections on the right, and and then you have your major sections, which are summary, work experience, your education, and extracurricular sections. So this is a pretty common format. But let's talk about the good and bad here, right? So the good thing that I think we see in this resume is it's well structured. Overall, the structure is great, because you can see all the sections very easily. The colors also, you might feel like the colors help you differentiate quickly with regard to the headers and uh, the differentiators between the different sections here. If you go through the content also, you will see that this person has highlighted certain metrics over here, and in the work experience section they have also pointed out certain key measurable performance criteria that helps them showcase that impact, not just say that hey, I have done this, but rather I have done this in a successful manner. So those are some of the good points. They have also, in the skills section, highlighted a mix of both, technical, meaning subject matter related skills. And by the way, this is a sales professional, as you can probably read from the first line itself. But they have highlighted some of the key skills, and they have not put a very long laundry list. They've just focused on the top 7 8 skills that they have. And they have also talked about certain behavioral leadership related skills as well, right? Now, on the second page also, it's pretty much similar format. They have highlighted the key situation, task, action, result format, and the key metrics. And they have also you know summarized the roles that are a bit too outdated at this point in just one line to save space and highlight more of the recent roles, right? In education, they have focused on just highlighting what are the most basic criteria that of information that you have to put with regard to the degree and which institute, and then just a little bit of around, okay, what are certain interests that the person has outside of work. And this obviously is good in a way because it shows that you are a holistic personality. You're not just a work body who's only doing all work and no play. And you have a character, you have a personality. So these are all the good aspects, right? Now let's talk about the things which actually make this resume not very recommended in today's world, especially in the last 1 year anymore, right? So the first thing is, there is no header which tells me what is this person's core profile positioning. So this is the name of the person, this is the contact information, and then it jumps straight to summary. What it could have done better is highlight a specific profile that this person is targeting, and that can be slightly tweaked for each job description. But like, let's say certain times this person might be applying to head of sales kind of a role, so they can put that kind of a position title at the top, assuming obviously it's relevant to their profile. And sometimes they would be looking for, let's say, head of strategic partnerships or head of BD and partnerships, so they would put that as the title over here. The reason we are saying that is because two things happened when you put that. Number one, it clearly gives a signal that this person is the most relevant for the type of role that they're applying to. It creates more curiosity in the recruiter and hiring manager's mind to read your resume further, because they are right off the bat being told that, hey, I am literally from the same exact background that you're looking for. So that skill and experience alignment that we are talking about, it's really demonstrated through that title at the top. So that is one reason. The other reason is also, a lot of times we have seen that ATS can also reward that kind of a title right at the top. When it is easily readable, it can be very strong signal to ATS that this person might have the right skill set, or give you some brownie points for showcasing that. So I think that's something that could be improved here. The other thing, which is probably something you all think about a lot, is what kind of formatting to go for. So this resume has two columns. Typically ATS systems don't like two columns. Okay, you want to focus not just on how aesthetically pleasing or beautiful your resume looks. You have to look at, hey, is it simple and clear enough to read? So if you have two columns, sometimes the ATS gets confused. They will put different information in different fields in the ATS software. So the objective and summary could get combined, unfortunately, or skills and experience section could get combined. One section could get missed. So those kind of issues can happen, especially in ATS systems which are not state of the art or not very sophisticated. So you want to avoid two columns. You ideally want to keep one column in most cases, right? Um, the other thing is colors. A lot of times, colors like bright colors, especially, can throw off ATS. It can also, if the color is something which the recruiter or hiring manager doesn't like, the bias can kick in. Like sometimes people use blue, but I've also seen sometimes people use other bright colors like orange, red, and those, some not sometimes, many times it gives the signal that you have not really focused on content. You've focused more on design and aesthetic, and unless you're a designer, it's not really going to work in your favor. So you really need to think about colors, right? The other thing that I want to talk about here is that if you look at even the summary of this, it may be considered good, right? It's not bad. It's talking about the key adjectives of that describe the character of that candidate, talks about where they have worked, and talks about kind of the key achievement that they have had. But there is very little discussion around the skill alignment. They have not really mentioned what are the key skills that are aligned with the company's requirements. Yes, they are mentioned here, but they should definitely also be mentioned in a organic manner in the summary section, right? So this section, while it's short, it's concise, has certain key metrics, which is great, but it is missing a very critical part of skills that should be highlighted, so that recruiters, hiring managers can quickly take a look and see, okay, this person has the right skills, or at least is talking about those that we are looking for, right? They may be mentioned here, but if they are not here, sometimes it can be too late. They might just read the summary section, move on quickly, realizing that, okay, this person does not have those skills. So you want to mention at least the top 3 or 4 skills that you have in your profile over here, right? You might also want to talk about the kind of promotion or kind of responsibilities that you have gotten outside of your core work responsibilities, because those showcase leadership potential. And if you are going for, let's say, managerial or leadership level roles, they can be very, very helpful to highlight over here. For example, you can state something like managing a team of XYZ people, or um, we led a team of XYZ people. So those kind of things are also not really mentioned here. It's very focused on just the core responsibility and the core sales goal achievement. So these are some of the things that I can highlight right off the bat. The other thing, as you can see, is there are way too many bullet points actually over here. Usually we don't recommend more than 6 or 7 bullet points, even though yes, you might have spent 5 years, and it's hard to compress everything in such a small space. But a lot of times companies are just going to or recruiters, hiring managers, they're just going to scan your document. They're not going to read each and every bullet point. So you want to make sure that it is engaging, it is something that is very tight and focused on the most important aspects that you want to highlight. And if it is not making any additional impact to your resume, like you have already covered that in a different bullet point, then just repeating it in one more bullet point is not going to help. So you might as well remove, right? Now, this person has 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 bullet points, and then they have a lot of other bullet points over here as well. So I'm not saying that this is always wrong. In some cases, if you have spent, let's say, 10 years at the company and you have never worked anywhere else, sure, maybe this could work. But if you have worked at other companies as well, um, then you want to make sure you are not just spending all your real estate at just one company. So typically 6 7 bullet points is good enough. Same thing that applies here. This is something that I've highlighted as a your strong point previously, because I do like the fact that it only summarizes the prior roles, right? And it saves a lot of uh, outdated information which may not be super relevant anymore. So all of that is great, but the additional point that could have been added here is just maybe one line description with regard to what was the key goal you achieved or impact you created in that role. Like if you were business manager at this company of XYZ vertical for 1 year, what was the core outcome of your responsibilities? That could have added a little bit of extra flavor, so that there's a consistent theme showcasing that this person is a high achiever, this person is focused on driving our key goals. So that is something that could have been improved here. And same thing in education, it's very to the point. Most people do this, they just talk about degree and institute, and again, that's fine, it's not going to probably make a hell of a difference. But we do see that there is an opportunity to highlight something which can position you more strongly, then why not? So if you have done certain, let's say, key leadership projects as part of your educational experience, especially if you have graduated, let's say, in the last 5 years from your masters or your undergrad, then you definitely should be highlighting that. Even if I would say, you have more than 5 years experience, which most of our clients do, but you have done something that is impressive, like um, you participated in certain sports and helped the college team win a trophy. Highlight that. It's okay, you can just write it in 4 or 5 words, it doesn't have to be very long, but you want to showcase that this person is a high achiever in multiple ways. And believe me, many times, the conversations can drift towards those things which are less expected, because a lot of times you'll meet personalities in recruiters and hiring managers who like to not just work with the best candidate, but like to work with somebody who they can get along with, who they have common interests with, right? That's a human trait. We like other people who are more like us. So the more you talk about those kind of things in a very pointed, concise manner, it can be helpful. This person has highlighted certain things with regard to that here, and I think it's brief and it's to the point, so it's fairly impactful, right? But those are the key points that I wanted to highlight. Oh yeah, one more thing. You can see there's a lot of blank space over here, which is fine. Sometimes people ask, oh, should I have blank space or not blank space? See, typically you want to utilize your resume in the most efficient manner, meaning you're not wasting a lot of space, right? Because then it just looks off, and it can sometimes throw the ATS off as well. So it's not like a red flag per se, but if you can avoid it, then avoid it. Don't leave a lot of blank space. Especially the main issue that comes up is a lot of times people will have 1.5 page of resume, where the first page is pretty full, but the second page only has, let's say, 30% that is full, and the rest is blank. Now, can happen. It's not the end of the world when it happens, as long as your overall formatting is good. But try and see if you can either make it a full one page and just try to keep it under one page, if especially you have less than 10 years experience. And if you have more than 10 years experience, then you might want to at least cover half the page, not just leave it at 20-30%. So those are just some hygiene points to be mindful of. All right, I think that was one of the main resumes that I wanted to showcase, both the good and the bad of. I will have one more resume that I showcase, but I do want to see if there were any questions that have come up so far, so I'll just go through them. We have mid-level manager who is looking for insights. All right, here's a question. For mid career professionals, what differentiates profiles that get shortlisted versus ignored? How would I know if my LinkedIn profile is being impactful? I've attended star interview that went excellent, but still didn't get selected. What could be the reason? All right, that's a good question and something that we do get frequently, but let's break it down, because there are three different questions in that one question. So the first is, what differentiates profiles that get shortlisted versus ignored? See, a lot of the factors we have been discussing, right? So the number one factor that we feel based on the feedback we have directly heard from recruiters, hiring managers in today's market is, can you showcase direct alignment with the core skills and the experience that you have? if you can showcase that direct alignment, whether it's in terms of subject matter expertise, in terms of the achievements that you have had in your prior work experiences, or it might be even certain side projects that you have done or certain smaller projects that you have done. If that alignment can be shown, that's the biggest factor. If that alignment is not shown, like for example, the company is looking for, let's say, so you're a mid-career professional, I don't know which field you are in, but let's say you work in product management. Now if the company is looking for somebody who has worked on product-led growth kind of uh, projects in product management, but you keep highlighting that you have primarily worked on CRO, conversion rate optimization projects, or you have maybe worked on certain other types of products which had nothing to do with product led growth, and you have not highlighted it, so then there's a chance you're not going to high chance you're not going to hear back. So you have to showcase direct alignment. And sometimes if you don't have that direct alignment, but you still feel strongly that you should apply, that's fine, you can, because I'm guessing you might have certain other areas which are not the top one or two skills that the company is looking for, but maybe certain other skills you can still apply. But if you see there's more than 20-30% gap in your resume alignment with the company's requirements, then you might want to skip and spend your time and energy on another role where you have a better alignment. So that's one. How would I know if my LinkedIn profile is impactful? You will That's a good question. I think there are two things. One is what steps you can take to optimize, and there are many steps. But one thing is you need to make sure the kind of best practices we are talking about for resume, like star metrics, ensuring that you are showcasing the right kind of alignment at the top through both structural alignment as well as your content or substance alignment. So if you are doing that in resume, same thing should be done for LinkedIn, right? Make sure your headline is optimized, not just your work experience section. Make sure your about section calls out the most critical projects and achievements that you have had. And obviously, then your work experience should not just list out the role and the company, but have at least 3 to 4 bullet points highlighting similar things that you might have highlighted in your resume, right? So that's one thing about LinkedIn. I think the other thing about LinkedIn is also just ensuring that you're checking what kind of your viewership your profile is getting. So if you are seeing that your profile is not getting many views, there's a chance that you're not optimizing using certain keywords that recruiters or hiring managers use at the time of searching for candidates, right? So you might want to, similar to how you might be doing research when you're looking at JDs and seeing, okay, what are the skill keywords or achievement keywords, experience keywords I should be putting in my resume. Same kind of thing you want to do for your LinkedIn. So the problem is LinkedIn is not used for any one specific JD. So people just assume, okay, I don't have to do any keyword alignment. But yes, you have to, because you have to think that it's a search platform for the recruiters. They're searching for candidates. So they'll use certain keywords to search for them. So you need to try different types of keywords if you're not getting the right kind of profile hits. And the more you do that, the higher the hits you will see over a period of time. Right. So it's not just about the profile optimization, it's also the keyword optimization that you're doing. And check the data, right? The analytics are there typically to see how many people have viewed your profile every week, and see if you're getting more hits, and you're getting the right hits from the right kind of people. The last one is your interview went excellent and it was in the star format, but you were not selected. That's I won't be able to share exactly why, because there could be just a whole host of reasons there. For example, they might have just found a candidate who was stronger than you and had better alignment with what they are looking for from a skills and experience standpoint. Another reason could be that while you shared everything from a star format, perhaps you could not impress the interviewer because you were too underconfident in your delivery, or you were sharing the same type of examples over and over. Right, so those could be the reasons. But a lot of times what we have seen, the reason is there are usually certain hesitation and biases that recruiters and hiring managers come into the interview with already. But when they have looked at your resume, they have already, I won't say made a decision all the time, but they have sort of some built some sort of expectation that this person is good in these areas or not good, so good in these areas, right? And if they feel like the latter part, which is that this person is not so good in these areas, is not addressed during the interview in a very head-on aggressive manner, then chances are they won't change their mind. They would continue to think, okay, I see, I knew that this person is lacking experience in this area, or this person is lacking skill alignment in this area. So that is often the reason that they would reject candidates. But yeah, I mean, I can't pinpoint to any one reason why people don't get offers. It could be a whole host. All you can do is ensure that you have very strong narrative which is consistent with your profile, and you can actually justify the things that you're saying. Like if you're saying I'm good at X, you need to be able to showcase achievements related to that. So your narrative needs to be very, very solid, but at the same time, the delivery and the way you are being perceived, that's what communication skills are. So how are you coming across to the individual, that also you need to rehearse. And one of the things we do where we get a lot of tremendous positive feedback is mock interviews. So mock interviews with our HR experts as well as our industry experts are extremely popular, because a lot of times people get interviews, they are not able to convert. But when they do these mock interviews, they at least get feedback, because otherwise companies don't really give you detailed feedback most times. So you get feedback through these mock interviews and you know where you are going wrong, right? So these are some of the things that I can share with you. We have another message. I think that's just a profile introduction. Thank you for sharing that. We have one more question, and I'll take that, and then we will wrap this up. So, how do you align more with ROI frameworks when you have AI and more dynamic scenarios for someone who's 10 plus years experience? Not sure what you mean by ROI frameworks, um, but I mean, because there's just so many, I don't know which one specifically you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, the point that I would like to take from this question is the AI part. And there's so many dynamic scenarios for someone with 10 plus years experience. That's a very valid point. So one of the things is, see, AI is an enabler, it's a catalyst, but it's not a substitute for human judgment, right? At least at this stage. What I mean by that is, a lot of times people are using, they are using uh, basically AI to spruce up their resume and to make it look better than it is, or sometimes just improving the effectiveness from an alignment perspective. So many times people are doing that, right? But at the same time, we need to ensure that your voice is retained in the resume, meaning you know best about your work, you know best about your experience and the achievements and skills that you have. So you need to make sure that those are coming across very, very clearly. If AI is highlighting certain aspects, you need to review and make sure it's actually highlighting the right things. And if it is missing certain key points which you think are worth highlighting, then you need to make sure you make the edits. Don't just copy paste what AI has. And AI can really, really be helpful when you're trying to customize, by ensuring that you are meeting the keyword alignment, or the goals that the company is trying to achieve. You are meeting alignment with those goals, so it can be very, very powerful. But you need to make sure that it's not making something up, or highlighting something which is not true, because a lot of times that can happen, and you may get an interview call back. But we have seen most of the times, I would say high majority of the times, if people have written something that is not true, or it's inflated compared to what the actuality is, recruiters and hiring managers are easily able to decipher that, and they reject candidates very, very quickly. At least that's what we have seen in our experience. So I would definitely not use AI to fabricate, but to amplify and strengthen the key areas of alignment that you have from a skills, experience, and industry expertise perspective, right? Industry expertise is also very helpful from an AI perspective. You can, for example, if you're applying in the same role but to different types of industries, one is let's say B2B SaaS industry, another is BFSI industry, third is consumer like FMCG or something like that. What you can do is use AI to understand what are the critical industry dynamics for this role at this stage, and make sure that you're customizing towards that to the extent possible where you have experience, right? That can be very, very powerful. The industry alignment, right? A lot of times actually candidates are being rejected if they don't have industry alignment. They may have good role alignment, but they don't have the understanding of how that industry functions because they were working in a different industry. So companies are preferring even not just role expertise but industry alignment as well. So you can definitely use AI for that. All right, folks. So with that, we have come to an end of today's session. Um, I hope it was helpful and gave you some key insights with regard to how you can improve your job application in the current job market. And while we focused a lot on resume, but I think we touched upon LinkedIn and the other things that we didn't touch upon, which, if you are curious, feel free to again schedule a session with me on LinkedIn or check out our website. Our cover letters and portfolios. Cover letter and portfolios are also becoming very, very powerful in helping candidates, even experienced candidates, stand out in the job market, right? The more you can demonstrate your skill set rather than just talk about it, that I have achieved this. If you can say, I've achieved this, look, this is how I did it, in a very summarized and pointed manner, that can create a lot of impact too. So, a topic for another day. And if you'd like any sort of help or support on your job search and career transition, please do check out our website on mypivot.work, and we'd be more than happy to support you achieving your goals. Thank you once again for sparing your valuable time with me on Thursday evening, and I hope you all have a great rest of the week and weekend.